Hello everyone and welcome to Star Stable Racing's first official YouTube video. In this video we're going to be going over all the basic things you need to know when getting started high score racing and doing championships in Star Stable Online. Now this is going to cover all the mechanics that are already provided in the game. This isn't going to be anything to do with disciplines or any of that fun stuff that you guys like to do. It's just going to be the racing mechanics that Star Stable already provides. This video will be broken up into cards and timestamps will be provided in the description for easy access to the topics you care about. So without further ado, let's get into the things you need to know. Okay, so the first and most basic thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to racing is the horse breed you're going to want to use when doing it. Before we get into the way it is today, we're going to take a quick look at the history of changes that have been made. Initially, the American Quarter Horse, American Paint Horse, and Appaloosa were all equally the fastest racehorses in the game without contest. However, partway through 2019, Star Stable updated the Quarter Horse's jump speed in a way that ruined them for racing, while leaving the Paints and Appaloosas alone despite them being identical models with identical jump animations and therefore identical speed to the Quarter Horse. Just recently, partway through 2020, they finally put the Paints and Appaloosas on the same level as the Quarters, which brings me to this topic. The overall best horse for racing in Star Stable as of the date this video was posted is the Pentavian. It's important to remember that this is a separate breed from the Arabian Thoroughbred, which has different base stats. There are some cases in which the old model Fjord horse is better, but given the fact that new players won't have access to purchase this horse, this channel and anything referenced on it will be using the Pentavian. The last thing in the way of horse breeds involves the Gen 3 Jorvik pony, the Gen 3 Chincoteague pony, and the Connemara. It can't really be said which of these ponies is the constant best overall, considering Star Stable makes frequent updates to their behavior, including bugs that cause their jump speeds to change constantly. It's difficult to say which pony you should invest in as a top priority, but any of them should do just fine, so get whichever one you like the most. For the horse, I would definitely invest in a Pentavian if you haven't already, though I would keep in mind that they will definitely make this horse obsolete in the future, judging by the way they have been updating racing breeds already and their future plans to rework the racing system altogether. One of the most important things to understand and remember are the stats of both the player outfit and horse tack that you are going to want to use and keep consistent. Some players choose to memorize the total number for each stat you should have at each player level to know if they have the max stats or not, but I personally find it easier to remember the individual item stats in their numbered order. That way, if I'm missing one writing somewhere, for example, I can easily find which piece it's missing from and replace it accordingly. It's up to you to figure out which way is the easiest for you to remember, but for now, we're going to go over the main two types of outfit and tack sets you can have. The first set we're going to look at is the one I'm currently wearing, which I like to call the Discipline set. I personally pair this tack set with any max stat player outfit, which we will go over later. The Discipline set consists of the Jarlheim blanket, the matte and dark western bridle, the durable saddle, and of course your pair of normal maxed horse shoes. The reason this set is good is it can make up for a lack of command speed at lower player levels, but it isn't really necessary at level 21 and beyond unless it's a flatter race such as the Moorland Basic track. I'm not going to go over where to get all of these items specifically in this video, however I will leave a link in the description to a website called the Star Stable Database where you can easily search for, find the price of, and where to buy any items in the game that you are looking for. Now we're going to move on to the standard outfit that defines what a max stat outfit means. Apart from a few miscellaneous pieces, these are generally the best stats you can obtain on each individual piece of clothing and tack in the game when it comes to speed. For the saddle pad, we're going to be looking at stats of Swiftness 3 and Agility 2. For the bridle, we're going to be looking at Strength 3 and Swiftness 3. For the saddle, we're going to be looking at Strength 1, Swiftness 3, and Agility 2. And for the horseshoes, we're going to be looking at Strength 3, Swiftness 2, Discipline 3, and Agility 2. Moving on to the clothing items, for the hat, we're going to be looking at riding 4, command 5, and carrying 3. For the shirt, we're going to be looking at riding 8, jumping 1, and command 4. Now, I want to talk about the shirt for a second because it can be confusing between the two different types of shirts. There is a shirt that comes with riding 8, jumping 4, and command 1, so the jumping and command are reversed. It's very important that you remember that the numbers go in the order of 8, 1, 4, and not 8, 4, 1. That's another reason I find it easier to remember the individual clothing stats in their order rather than the total number on the side, because it's very easy to overlook that little difference between the two. So always remember that the shirt goes 8, 1, 4. And then for the pants, we're going to be looking at riding 5, jumping 5, and command 3. For the gloves, we're going to be looking at riding 4, command 4, and the carrying 1 is optional. And for the boots, the same thing, we're going to be looking at riding 4 and command 4, and again, carrying +1 does exist and it is optional. Moving on from the numbers, we're going to take a look at what those numbers actually mean from a technical standpoint. Each player's stat correlates with the horse stat with the exception of endurance, agility, and carrying. There are 3 things for the player that determines their total points for each stat category, while there are 4 things for the horse. As you may already know, each horse comes with its own set of base stats that are unique to the breed. The remaining factors are the same for that of the player, which are skill development bonuses, level bonuses, and equipment bonuses. Apart from training your horse and progressing in the game, the only bonus you can actively affect is the equipment bonus, which we just went over previously. Now let's get into what these stats actually mean. For the player, the first stat we have is riding. Riding affects the overall speed of you and your horse, which correlates with the horse's swiftness stat that does the same thing. The next player's stat we have is command. Command affects how quickly your horse reacts to the input of telling it to go up or down a gate and directly correlates with the discipline stat for the horse. Then we have jumping, which affects your horse's ability to clear jumps based on your timing, so the higher jumping skill you have, the easier it will be for you not to trip on jumps. This stat directly correlates with the strength stat of the horse. Lastly, for the player, we have carrying. Carrying is the least important stat overall, and as far as I'm aware, it only affects how long it takes for your horse to need to be fed, watered, and groomed if you don't have stable care, but I'm pretty sure they removed that function overall, rendering carrying useless. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about this. For the final 2 horse stats, we have endurance and agility. Endurance is the duration of time you have until you receive the flashing horse icon, letting you know you need to command your horse again to continue forward with your current gait, as well as the duration of time that flashing icon lasts before ultimately sending you down a gate. Agility is simply the speed at which your horse turns, which is why in the Starshine Ranch races, you are provided an immense amount of agility points. Now that you have all of the completely basic knowledge about what goes into racing, we can talk about some simple tips to get you on the right track of getting better scores each time you go in. These tips don't have any specific category, so I'm just going to kind of go through them one by one. The first thing is the physical checkpoint flags. As you may or may not know, you can run pretty close to them and sometimes even through them or just outside of them and still technically hit the checkpoint with either the side of your horse or your horse's tail. Use this to your advantage and try to cut flags as tightly as possible to shave off those precious milliseconds of your time, which will quickly add up. The next thing is knowing which checkpoints can be cheated and which ones can't. For example, there are a lot of races with jumps you don't actually have to go over, and there are a lot of other jumps that you do actually have to go over. I would recommend watching individual race shortcut videos, which SSR will be providing very soon, but you can also find them elsewhere on YouTube to know which checkpoints fall under which category. Next, I would say to try to path yourself in as straight of a shot as possible to the next checkpoint. The less time you spend curving around to the next checkpoint, the faster your time will be overall. The next thing we have is something that I call micro-adjusting, which goes hand in hand with the previous point. If you attempt to get a straight shot to the next checkpoint, but over or undershoot it, your first instinct is most likely going to be to tap your keys in whichever direction you need to correct for to get to the next checkpoint as straight as possible. This is the best thing to do, however try to minimize how often you have to do it, as it still shaves off those precious milliseconds of your time despite it not looking like you're moving very much. Then we have boosting. Boosting is something that can help tremendously with your time or completely butcher any good time you had going for you if you mess it up. Boosts are typically done when the race turns downhill, and a good amount of them result in you sort of clipping through the ground at least a little bit. I personally don't recommend trying to learn boosting until you've mastered getting good times with everything else first and having consistently clean runs. And that's going to do it for this video. The topics covered in this video answer most of the frequently asked beginner questions that we receive on a daily basis, but we would love to go more in depth in future tutorials and guides. Anything that becomes outdated in this guide will be pinned in the comments and added to the description, so I would definitely recommend double checking those places. Thank you for watching, and I hope I helped you in your racing journey.